Welcome to the Finding Free Thought podcast.
This podcast is funded by you. To support our work, please consider making a purchase from our free thought shop. Check out my campsite at campsite.bio/goodresonance, where you can follow me on social media, make a donation, subscribe to my newsletter, check out my essential oils offerings, and grab my restorative teas ebook. Please subscribe to the audio version of this podcast on Apple and Podbean and the video version on YouTube and Rumble.
Be sure to check out my 6-episode sci-fi comedy series, Simon Esler's Dystopian Imaginarium, along with my 60-minute comedy special, Theorize About Conspiracies, and my 3-season hit show, Worlds Within, all on Rise TV. And don't forget to hit up simonesler.com for all of my work, to join my newsletter, for links to purchase my NFTs, make donations, and follow me on all social media. You can also join my locals community, Team Free Thought, at teamfreethought.locals.com, where I'll be offering subscribers previews of new sketch comedy material, documentary work, and private broadcasts for supporters only. As a member of Team Free Thought, $5 a month gets you all of that, plus a 15% discount at the Free Thought shop.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Finding Free Thought podcast. It's me, Amanda, here solo today, and I'm being joined by my friend Melissa. And I'll just give you a little bio for Melissa before we get started. Melissa Leithwood, a women's mentor, certified Gene Keys guide, and 6'3" emotional projector in human design. She's a mother to 2 generator-type girls whom she homeschools. She mentors women in embodying their soul's purpose through human design and Gene Keys so they may pass this wisdom along to their children. So nice.
Yay.
So awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Ooh, thank you for having me.
Is there anything that you would like to say and add to that just to get started?
It's inevitable that we'd come here and chat because, like, for those of you listening, Amanda and I'm not a caves environment in human design. I'm a mountains environment, but my office is in the basement. And so last time when you were here, you were like, oh, this is so my perfect caves environment. I feel so relaxed. And we just had like the best, juiciest chat.
I still think about that little cave and I was like, wow, I'm kind of in a mountains. Well, I make my space cavey, but we're up higher.
Yes. And I have a picture of a mountain in my basement.
Yeah, right. You work with what you have. That's amazing. Well, you're doing something really interesting there's so many areas in human design that you can like go on deep dives and like really get differentiated and, look at all these areas. So tell us a little bit about what you've been looking at lately.
Yeah, so I can give you a little bit of a history around how I stumbled upon human design and where I'm at now. So for me, I stumbled upon human design at a time in my life when I was experiencing a lot of anger, or what I thought was anger, and I didn't really know where it was coming from. Because my anchor strength in my life has always been positivity. Even though I've had a lot of stuff in my life that have been challenges, and my family upbringing was not very traditional nor particularly stable, but did have stable moments. And so for me, my positivity always was my anchor. And when in 2019, December of 2019, I just woke up one day and my emotions started to feel really different. And I was like, oh, interesting. I started to develop a lot of melancholy, but not in the way of like depression, but really in the way of like just sort of this void, like this experiencing of like, oh, something's shifting. I'm going into like, what used to excite me and I was so like positive about, is all very changing. And I felt all of a sudden this anger and I didn't know where it came from. So forward to couple months later in, I think February, I was listening to something on Instagram, and it was a reference to projectors. And I was like, oh, that sounds like me. Sounds like me. What is this? And it referenced out to an audio listening to an audio of um, the person who transmits or transmitted human design, Ra Uru Hu, talking about, what is a projector and how is it that projectors operate, what's their role in the world. And as I was listening to it, I was on our co-sleeping bed with my daughter, who was, I don't know, 2 or 3, and I was breastfeeding her, and I just started to feel so seen, and I started to cry, and I never cried, and I was like, oh my God, this explains why I have been so angry, but it wasn't anger actually that I was experiencing. It was what he described, which is bitterness. Because I had previously, and it wasn't this pandemic stuff that was getting me down or running me around or whatever. It's some people they try to put words into my mouth and tell me well, we did a pandemic, and I'm no, really, it's not that. My life really didn't change.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's some inconveniences that I had to deal with and some BS, but it didn't really, I was always homeschooling, and things closed for us, sure, but we were a hiking family anyways. So although I do miss Florida, I must say. We go on our yearly Florida vacations. So, so what happened was I was like, wow, this is bitterness, because a year prior, I had been in network marketing and really really trying to build my business in another country that, I was going about it in all the wrong ways. I was going about it in what I typically had always done, which is, looking at who's successful and then basically seeing, what they're doing, and then tinkering, which is such a third line thing because I'm a 6'3", tinkering and experimenting with via trial and error, what's going to work, what's not going to work. And I burnt myself out because I was basically operating almost like a generator, but then also you had the patriarchal layer on top of it, which was hustle culture. And then come the time when December hit, it was I had no juice left inside of me. I was not only burnt out, but I was very bitter because I had been helping people who essentially didn't recognize me. And I don't think they really wanted my help, now that I think about it, because my whole life, the nature of a projector is to guide. And considering that I have the alpha channel, which is one of my 3 channels defined, which is sort of this channel of leadership, but not by putting my stake in the ground and calling myself a leader, but just by the fact of being someone who role models and naturally has people who want to follow. And so for me, that's always been there. I've always had an undercurrent of influence in my life. I've always been that type of person that people will ask for advice and want to know what it is that I'm using. But that particular year, it was the tables turned, because all of a sudden I wasn't doing what I usually was doing naturally before knowing I was a projector, which was waiting for invitations. I wasn't waiting for invitations anymore. I was like, okay, gonna make this happen, and like push, and like and I was the one making the invitations. And the more invitations I put out, I thought it was according to like hustle culture, you know, like this is the way that you do things, right? This is how you get things done. And the more I did that, I wasn't standing in my power, but I was using force. And I forget that book, Force versus Power, by somebody, I forget. Consciousness Dude. The Map of Consciousness by Hawk something. Anyways. And yeah, I just got so burnt out and bitter. And when I heard that, it was like coming back home. When I heard the audio by Raw on projectors, it was like coming back home to myself. And I realized, well, when I look back at all the successful things in my life, it had always been when I had taken the time to do self-study, learning, soaking in, working on myself, and then the invitations just naturally came. And so I started to really do that. I started to like come back home to myself, and I started to follow this strategy and authority for projector, and it brought me back into self-love. It's brought me into, not back into, but it brought me into a deeper level of awareness, which has benefited everybody in my family, and in my immediate family, especially my children and my husband in relationship with our children, because I am able now to bring a level of awareness that he doesn't yet have access to. But through me bringing that, it's bringing him up as well, like in that awareness. So it's actually quite beautiful. You know, there's a lot of talk about parents and how, you know, if you're parenting by human design, that both parents should be following their design. And that's great and ideal, but I really am seeing the benefit with even just myself, like really doing the deep dives, like with my own design. My husband is super interested in it, but he's not the one like reading the books like I am and listening to the audio, taking the courses. Like I'm obsessed. He's just like, okay, give me the download for today. What do we got? Right?
Yeah. It's a good generator projector thing going on.
Yeah, exactly. He's the generator, and he's like, okay, I need to know like what's the shortcut. Like, okay, you go and learn all the things, and like just give me like the Coles Notes version, which is fine. It works. He's open to it. So I can imagine it would be difficult if like one parent was totally not into it at all. But I don't think that both need to be heavily studying it. Given what I've experienced in my own home, I feel like as long as you have two people one person who's definitely like deconditioning, learning about their design, and the other person can just have like a receptivity.
Yeah.
Kind of like, and that brings me to like really where we're at today, which is we are via me really diving into the idea of like parenting by human design. And so something I hadn't done before was really taken a deep dive into my own children's charts. I've done it for a lot of other people and for myself, but considering that I know their birth times, which is like ideal, I don't know my exact birth time. But for them, I do. And it's really cool. It's actually through that lens that I've been able to dig deeper into PHS, the primary health system, the variables in the chart around their nutrition, because that was an area that I didn't naturally, because I didn't know my exact birth time. Although my mom keeps saying she's going to get it, but who knows? And you know, moms.
Yeah, exactly. It's tricky.
Like, I'll call the doctor. I'm like, I've been waiting since my last birthday. That was supposed to be my birthday present. Get the birth sign. So
waiting.
I'll be waiting a few more years.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me because so basically, like, my grandmother has one birth time, my mom has another, and my dad's kind of like in the middle. So I'm like, okay. And basically, if I go with my grandmother's birth time, which was also my astrologist's guesstimate on whatever she saw on my chart, then I would be a 6'2". And with everything else, including the Akashic Records reading, I'm a 6'3". And when someone asked me, another human design reader asked me, oh, well, do you feel one or the other? I'm like, honestly, I don't know, because, you know, the sixth line is the third line up until the age of 30. So I definitely have felt third line vibes. And so if you ask me like that question, I'm like, honestly, like, I've experienced both sixth line and third line, and I very well could be a 6'2", and I could be a 6'3". I really, right now I feel like more inclined towards the 6'3", but we'll see what time tells. So anyways, with the PHS, that's where I'm really excited to dive in, because my daughter has cold thirst, and I saw this, I think it was you who posted it about it, or somebody posted, or maybe you reposted it, a reel that someone did where they had like tons of drinks on their side table.
Yeah.
That's my Eva. Like, she has all the time, like, she's got to have like 3 or 4 glasses of different things at nighttime, like before bed. She's got her water, then she's got her Camu water, and then she's got a water with like some fruits in it, and then she's got another water with like lemon and cucumber. And that's like, these are all like must, like, she will not go to sleep unless like things are there.
And they drink a lot of like smoothies and things. I've seen you share that before, like cold pressed juices, smoothies, like very good for things like that. Raw cold juice.
Exactly, like cold stuff all the time.
Yeah.
She loves it. And like, see, if I knew this earlier, when she was like 2 years old, I think it would have, that this awareness, it would have made it a lot easier for me, because so I had my own ideas around like, well, it's winter and it's -30, and like, you need to wear a jacket to go outside, and I have to like put you in your stroller and bundle you up. Oh, and you don't want to be in the carrier because it's too hot. Put her next to my body. Like, she hated to be in the carrier. She always liked to be facing out. Right. But if she was facing in, it was like disastrous. Couldn't do it. And then if I was wanting to go out and needed to put her in the stroller, she absolutely would not wear a snowsuit or anything. So I had to order from Amazon this like insulated like cover that you put over, and underneath that it had a window. So like, we're walking like to the Eaton Center down like the streets of Toronto, right, when it's like -30, and people, like especially the old, you know, grannies, they'd be looking at it because through the window, like, my child was wearing like a tank top and underwear.
What a terrible mother.
And they're like, oh my God, is she cold? I'm like, no, she's not cold, not at all. Like, it was and I was worried, so I'd like put blankets in there and stuff, and she'd hate it. And of course, like, you know, she'd be so warm, like she would be so warm, even though people were like, what's going on here?
Oh my goodness.
But it's always been like that for her. Like, she just naturally has this higher body temperature set point. And so the drinks, the cold, like she just loves it. And when I saw that in her chart, I was like, oh my God, that would have saved me so much. Like if I just knew that, I would have been like, it's acceptance, right? It's like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you're like that. Okay, cool. Like I didn't have to like struggle for a month.
Yes. Yes. It's well,
Although
she has the channel of struggle, yeah.
yeah, she has the channel of struggle, so maybe she needed to struggle. And
she brought the struggle to you, and you got to experience the struggle.
Exactly. Oh my God.
Oh my goodness. Very interesting.
That's where we're at. Like really, I'm going in on that one.
Yeah.
And I was looking at like the courses at the International School of Human Design on those, but it's kind of like, I feel like there should be a shortcut for projectors because I'm kind of overdoing prerequisites for things because I can just like zoom through things. Like I'm just like a natural, like, and I know you are too. Like you just like, I don't need that. Just give me the material and like I can do it all and it's all good.
Absolutely.
Or stuff and prerequisite stuff. Just sell me the books. Yes. Oh, you don't want to. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. Yes, I know. It is interesting. I know people have talked about that before in terms of like getting access to information. And I do feel like the primary health system can potentially be very helpful for projectors to know immediately. Whereas like, I mean, it could be for anybody potentially, but I think a lot for projectors because projectors' bodies are really needing that support here on Earth. And so like if we just knew that, but like you said, it's like even helping with kids early on and the awareness around it. So it's just, it can make it a little easier. Asher's a 6th color determination, so he's a nighttime eater. And so, you know, with him, and I know a lot of babies wake up in the night and stuff, but he was up like every hour. And I just thought, is this normal? It's my first child. I guess it's normal. But then with Idris, it was like, no, he's sleeping like 5 hours straight through the night. He's not hungry in the night.
Yeah, that's like my Eva and Ivy.
Yeah.
And Asher loves to play with Eva, and they're like very like-minded. And that's exactly how Eva was too. And Ivy was like, yeah, she would from birth, she was sleeping 8 hours, 7 hours straight. Goodness. And I was like, do I need to wake her up to feed her? They're like, no, don't wake her. This is great. This is a gift from God.
Is everything okay? Yeah, it can help a lot with kids to know. And like even just, you know, now we'll give Asher like sort of smaller meals in the morning, generally, obviously using their authority as well. But generally he just has more of an appetite in the evening. He just can handle it better. So I wonder, you know, when they're older, will they just take it upon themselves? You know, will he just take it upon himself to just eat at night and not really and fast during the day or whatever it will look like? But they'll have this awareness now from such a young age. It's fascinating. What a gift.
It is. Like, it's really a gift. So that to say like, you know, it's okay that you don't have to conform to someone else's expectation of you. So you'll receive the pressure, but you don't have to accept it.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that's so huge.
Absolutely. And you're right, diet culture and like diet conditioning is very strong. So like for me, I'm calm. So like sometimes now, like oftentimes before I'll be at dinner parties and stuff and I can't eat very much and people look at me and I've been told I have an eating disorder, like questioned by my friends over the years, like, do you have an eating disorder? Like, what's going on? Why aren't you eating? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm not hungry. Then I go home and I'm starving and I'm with no one and I just eat and I feel fine. So now I just say, like, sometimes I can eat around people at a party, sometimes I can't, and I just have to wait till it's a calm environment.
Exactly.
So it's not as social in that way, but I can enjoy like the dinner party and then step away to eat or whatever. There's different things. And it helps if you know and can explain it, maybe some, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Reminds me of Ivy. This morning I took her to tennis, and she's right. She's also a late night eater.
Mm.
I'm like, do you want to eat something before we go for tennis lessons? No, I'm not hungry. Okay. Well, I packed some apples just in case. I don't know. She doesn't particularly eat. Sometimes she will, but typically not like right in the morning. She likes to kind of eat more mid-morning. And so when we finished tennis, I was like, okay, she must be hungry because she didn't eat anything. And I'm like, are you hungry? She's like, no. Like, okay. Like, you're pretty active. Like, you're like, she's a generator and she's like running around burning all this energy, right? But she's like, no, I'm good. I'm like, okay. So we got home. Like, are you hungry yet? Stop asking me. I'm not hungry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I've heard that before.
that's fine. I mean, obviously she did eat, like, but it wasn't. It's not like, you know, if I didn't know that, then I might have pressured her to eat. Like, oh, but you have to eat because, you know, you're going to need this energy to do your like tennis lessons, and you know, and then there's the societal pressure on top of that, which is like, oh my gosh, if someone finds out you didn't eat breakfast, like it's like I'm like such a bad mom, or like whatever. Like, you know, like there were things, right?
Yeah.
And just kind of knowing that, I'm like, okay, so this is, she knows like herself. She's not hungry. It's fine. Like, I can ask her, because it's my job to ask her questions so that her sacral can respond and be like yes or no. And that's why I continued to ask her like after tennis, and then again when we got home. So I think that's an important thing. And then when she does say yes, then it's like, okay, I can, you know, then prepare something if I need to. But just that awareness was helpful, not only for her, but like for my emotions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's a relationship even between you and your child, and the dynamic.
I mean,
the stress
there are such things as co-regulation, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and diet can bring a lot. Idris is closed taste, so that has you know, I was never one to force the kids to eat anything, because I was forced to eat certain things when I was a kid, and it felt really, really wrong. So I was like, nah, I think that causes more problems, like creates a power struggle. But Idris has, you know, would be very like, would refuse a lot. And even Simon would just get so upset and frustrated and angry. And it's like, just try one taste, and, you know, just taste it. Because with Asher, it was always like, well, taste it. If he doesn't like it, you know. But Idris, closed taste, he just has to look at it and know. And it's like, friggin' furious. You're like, ah. But I've grown the most in that area too, where I thought I'll be fine with that. But you're like, oh my God, my energy has made this. Now you don't want it. Now you're hungry. So it has taken some time to learn just sort of like some of the things that are go-tos for him. And then once you figure that out.
Could you take Polaroid pictures or pictures of your dishes as you make them? So that way,
yes,
right? And then you can have like a binder or just like something on the wall where you could be like, okay, you know, we've had all these things before. What do you point to what you want now? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I feel like
exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing. And once I found out that it was obviously more about whole foods and really simple ingredients, that made it easier too. It was like, oh, well, it's actually not that hard. He really likes just whole foods. That's easier than making like mixed, you know, multiple ingredient soups and stews and things. So
exactly,
it can be simpler, even though at first it seems difficult.
yeah.
Yeah.
And just knowing that about myself, like, because I'm alternating,
Right.
I I noticed that about myself, like when I stick to simple, clean foods,
Mm-hmm.
that like my energy is better, my gut is better, like everything is just better. So when I stick to,
Yeah.
and I've always done that. That's always been something that people have commented on when they've eaten with me. They're like,
Yeah.
why do you like go from one food to the next food on your plate? Like I don't eat everything all together, like jumbled up. If
Yeah.
something is put on my plate, I'll like finish, that item, and then I'll move on to the next, and then I'll move on to the next. Like I generally don't just like, unless it's a salad where everything's mixed together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And in which case, like that has to be simple for me. If it's like crazy and filled with all kinds of stuff, it's too much. Like I remember like pad thai, falafel, like these foods really upset my digestion and make my energy
Right.
plummet, even though they're
Right.
super tasty,
Yeah.
but they do.
Complex. Yeah. I know. And I wondered about like, foods like, Indian food and different other blends where there's like, 30 different spices. And I guess it would depend on the person. But Simon is alternating as well. So it's like exploring with that because sometimes a sandwich itself is too many things in one bite. Um,
Oh yeah.
and that's tricky because he's like, I love burritos and sandwiches where everything's just jumbled. So you have to, I mean, you can't follow any hard rules. I guess in the end, it's really about still exploring.
Exactly. I think, whether this is something I've always advocated for with human design, it's like from the beginning, um, when I was when I was introduced to human design, like, and then of course, naturally after I listened to that audio and I felt so seen and validated, my next thing was like really going into self-study. And that took me into like some Facebook groups, and which I don't hang out in anymore. But at the time I was like, okay, let's kind of like look for some resources and like Google stuff and whatever. But something that I noticed in Facebook groups that I didn't particularly feel aligned towards was like obviously there's a lot of good, but then some of the things that people would say would be like, well, this is like done like this, and like it's not like like it seemed like very like rigid. Like some people were taking it like it was some like like law or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, that's not my particular approach. Like I think the whole idea from at that point that I really understood was that you're coming into your own inner authority, and by so doing you get to choose what's best and right for you. And so for me, what felt good was taking the perspective that I do with everything, which is I'm going to take what works and kind of, leave and set aside what doesn't really like resonate. And I'll always be open to coming back to that, which is what I did with the PHS, because PHS didn't resonate for me at the time. And so for me, like this idea that human design, like I see some of the questions asked in groups, and it's like it almost, I feel kind of a bit sad, because for some people it's like, oh, am I supposed to do this or am I supposed to do that? I'm like, that's not the whole point. Like that's the point is being missed. It's not about what am I supposed to or not supposed to do. It's about coming into and it's not about asking the other for their authority. Like it's about deciding what's right for you inside. And so sometimes when I see that, it comes back to this idea with, like we were just talking about with PHS, with eating. It's like it's all an experiment. Like you're trying to see what works for you. And I think if human design does anything, like any that provides us, if human design does anything to really expand us, it's to bring this awareness. And so for me, that's what it's been. It's been like, okay, now I can add these different layers. I can look at, and I can take this idea that I have this alternating diet. Okay, now we're in the season of summer. I can also add the additional layer of Ayurvedic or seasonal cooking, or dosha, based on your doshas. You can do it based on traditional Chinese medicine, the elements. And I love that. Like, I think that's so amazing to be able to kind of mix and match the modalities to figure out, what's right for you. And I think that's where all of a sudden it's like, oh, like when I see cookbooks now promoting certain ways of eating, paleo, or I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like I might try a recipe, but I'm not like gonna define how I eat based on some like diet culture, based on a label, because I'm open to now like my own, I don't know, intuitive or my own style of eating, however, what feels good and right for me. And that has helped me a lot, because so for example, that, people will say, oh, you're not supposed to eat late once you're like 40. And I'm like 41 now. And
cool.
yeah, my naturopath also, she's like, oh, you're eating too late. And I mean, mind you, I did have some hypoglycemia issue, which was like low blood sugar, but that was related to my thyroid, which was related to projectory stuff, and also like open spleen stuff. And yeah, it's so interesting. So when I tried that, because I'm also a nighttime eater, and I've always been like, my digestion for everything has always been more towards the evening. Like all throughout university, I always was like, my brain turned on at night, like in the evenings, everything turned on in the evenings. And my brain requires a ton of fuel. Like I could do nothing all day but read, and I will be so hungry because my brain just like will eat all the food.
Yes, thinking requires energy too. It's true.
So much, right? Like I'll be like lying in bed and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so hungry again.
Yeah, that's something I never valued to the last couple of years. Like, I'm like, well, I'm not physically doing anything, so I didn't think that would equal, like, like people go to the gym, then they feel like they can eat whatever, like only physical energy. So that's really interesting.
It is. So anyways, that's the so I started eating again in the evening. Hold on, wait, so I'll tell you. So I started eating again. No, because I stopped for a while and I was like, oh, she was like, you can't eat in the evening. And then my other friend, who's a nutritionist and registered dietitian, and like she's very much like us, but she was also like, oh yeah, you can't eat in the evening. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I really value her opinion.
Right.
And then I was like, oh man, okay, I guess I'll try this. So I was like, well, I can't just not eat in the evening. Like it's like unfathomable. It would be like not breathing to me, because I've always done it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like 8:00 comes around, I'm like, I'm starving. I need to eat something. Like I need to eat something. Like my body's like, you gotta eat. So I bought like broth, like tons of broth, preparing myself, knowing that I would like need to eat. And broth like was good. Like it tied me over a bit, but it definitely didn't do the job. And so I was so hungry. And I noticed that like my productivity in the evening went down, like in terms of like how I was digesting information, all that just kind of tanked. And then I went and I started to eat again in the evening, and everything is fine now.
So there you go.
No, because so I got my hypoglycemia like under control. Basically, what I needed to do was to lift weights, which made a lot of sense when I looked at my gene keys, because my gene keys purpose sphere, the line for that for me is basically to be doing a lot of like not cardio per se, but like in terms of aerobics, but cardio in general. Like I need to have things that get my heart pumping. And so and since becoming a mom, like that kind of, went out the window. And then also because I also am a projector and I need rest. So anyways, I started to build in more strength training, and that got sorted out. And now my blood sugar stuff's great, and I eat like all the way to like 11 p.m. at night, and I'm very happy.
Amazing. Yeah, see? And that's another thing too. I was told, obviously many years ago in traditional Chinese medicine, it was like you stop eating at like 5 o'clock or at least before the sun sets. And in some ways I feel like that's why I was attracted to, well, Chinese medicine really helped me in many ways, but why I started to promote calm eating. And before, this was many years ago, when I was sort of teaching other people how to eat calmly and how to cook food in a calm environment and like all of these things that I thought everyone needed to do. And it's not that, again, this is potentially really helpful for someone, but now I see why I was very focused on it. It was just, I'm like, you have to eat calm. How can you digest if you're not eating calm? Meanwhile, there are nervous eaters, and those people can like eat in busy, and they need to be making like a little bit of sort of an environment that's busy, which is sort of unspeakable to me. I'm going, what? You're standing eating? Like you're it's noisy, and how do you digest? So
exactly.
Yeah,
people
there's
who
a
have
lot
high
of stuff.
sound and all that.
Yeah, high sound. Yeah. And that's the other thing. There's just so many nuances. So it helps to have guidance from someone who can like see a few of those little things for you and help you tweak. Because when your diet is tweaked, actually a lot of things open up.
Especially for like when you're a parent, it's knowing that about our kids. It can reduce a lot of our own parental like frustrations. It can make their lives easier, like for our kids or children, when we can really just understand the other instead of following like, well, you should be, or this is how it should be. This is like, and that's what I love about human design, is like this idea of, actually it was created, I learned it was not created, sorry, it was like transmitted to Ra, and Ra was, he saw it basically as the gift for the next generation of children, but it comes through the parents learning their designs and doing the work on aligning themselves with their design. And really that was so cool, because then it was this notion of like the dehomogenization, right? Because I remember when I was becoming a parent, like I read a ton of books. I mean, they were alternative books.
Yeah,
they were still books. Right? Like there's still like baby-led weaning.
Yes.
Like
gentle parenting.
Yeah, like the first food that you should introduce would be like egg yolk with some liver flake on top or something. And like,
oh my god,
that was fine for like my first kid, but then my second kid was just like reached for the cantaloupe or something. I don't remember what it was. And I'm like, but if I was, and some people are, they would be like, oh my God, like, no, don't do that. We have to introduce this food first. And like, we have like this regime and we got to like, and so all of a sudden there's this homogenization that comes. And so what I love now knowing that is I literally can read everything now with just like a take it or leave it, read it with a grain of salt, like sort of thing. Like instead of how I used to be, which was like, whoa, my God, like, why isn't everybody like doing this way?
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, I know. I think probably all of us can relate to that in some way. And much like you said too, like people coming into these sort of groups, and human design is unlike anything that I've seen before because it's not asking you to believe. Whereas a lot of other systems end up, or at least we end up falling into that. And I guess that's some of the conditioning when you end up in a group asking questions like, what should I do? Instead of, asking for some guidance and then checking out if that's right for you or doing your own exploration. Because of course guidance is needed in all of this because it's very complex. And we're all like meant to be interconnected and sharing and stuff with each other. But it's funny. Yeah, it is funny to see people coming and going, well, I'm just going to put this set of rules in and it'll fix the issue. But it's like, that's sort of a 7-centered way in a sense. Like that's like, well, but you can't just use human design as a tool that you've used like every other time. You actually have to do it.
Not just about like understanding it, it's about like embodying it. It's about trying it.
I know.
Like giving it a good go.
Yeah, giving it a shot. And like you said, obviously because there's so many layers, you sort of go in at your own pace and like experiment with which areas at your own pace.
Exactly.
Something like this will speak to you like it did to you and me and many other people. You feel like when you get some of this information, you feel seen. You might really feel like going into it and exploring it a bit more.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's like, I've introduced human design to a couple of projectors. Actually, funny enough, like I'd say 80% of my friend network are projectors, which was so interesting because like 20% of the world are projectors. I'm like, somehow we find each other, right?
Yes.
And there's two projectors that actually 3 projectors that felt really seen and validated. One even cried, but haven't gone off and felt the need to study it or do anything else more than like they know some cool stuff about what Melissa told them.
Sure.
And whatever that did for them, that's great. Like
yes.
Once I think that's a really nice thing. Like just by knowing, just by like having someone kind of see something, that you can go off and like live your own life. You don't have to study human design or even be into it. But just like having someone kind of like at a subconscious level, I feel like there's just something beautiful that just happened. And there's that validation. And I think that for me, that was everything. Just having someone kind of give me information that I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah.
I can go off and live my life.
Yeah, it's true. And you bring up a really great point of what I've seen also, like people coming to me. Some people, just want that recognition and ability to help them like see parts of themselves and then just sort of be with that. Whereas other people want to go further into decondition and like go, take it that other track. Neither is like right or wrong. But sometimes just the recognition is enough, at least for a long, long time. One of the previous podcasts we did with Alexis, I think she said that her mom introduced her in like 2015 or something, and there was like nothing of interest until like right now. And that, it blows my mind. I'm like, wow, like I just got sucked in much like you. I was like, I'm never coming back. I can't say
Exactly.
that for sure, but
Oh my God.
so
Yeah,
I
but
love that.
I think that's it. I think that there actually really is a never coming backness. It's just like a matter of how much you want to engage with it.
Yes.
Like you are.
Yes.
Yeah, because I feel like exactly what you just said. I really feel that I've come to a point in my life now where I can be who I am. And for a very long time, I felt like I couldn't.
Mhm.
I felt like it wasn't safe. Uh, and
Mhm.
so, and maybe it's a 6 line thing because 6 lines have this sort of this privacy shield. Sometimes you don't really see the real person behind the screen. But I think what was so nice about human design was, yeah, was like I feel like now, like having a conversation with you or anybody that would involve me talking about like my life or my kids or like any of my upbringing like would be unfathomable before, whereas now I feel very comfortable about it. And
Mhm.
where and I feel like my life before was very much about like putting up a not a front, but just like putting on an outfit that wasn't mine. It was like when I went through business school, it was like always, you had to be, it's the conditioning process. It's like you couldn't. So here I am, I have like 58% feminine energy, yin energy in my chart. And knowing that now is so beautiful. But back then, when I was a kid, so here's a fun story for you. So when I was a kid, my grandparents said that I never wanted to wear pants. I only wanted to wear dresses. And I loved all the girly things. And I don't remember that phase at all. I see pictures, but I don't remember that at all. What I remember was the kid who wanted to dress like a boy, the kid who wanted to cover up everything, the kid who wanted to wear pants all the time and just hide. That's the kid I remember. That and similarly, all through university and then into business school, it was the same thing. It was like, okay, I need to wear a suit. I need to dress this way. I need to like, even though on the inside, it's not how I felt at all. Like I felt like my real truest expression was never able to come out because I was always not only grasping for the right words to say, but I was also grasping for the right way to look and also the right way to move. So everything, all about finding the right way.
Wow.
And if you're looking for correction, you're going to find yourself very deeply conditioned.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
when I learned in my chart, I was 58% feminine energy. I was like, holy, well, I don't know who that person is that's 58% feminine energy because I don't feel that way. But if I think about, because they say that if you want to know who you are, look at how you were when you were a kid for the most part, because it's during those early years where you're receiving, you're not conditioned, but you're actually receiving conditioning.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. So I was like super into girly stuff and like I love to wear, like I absolutely love to wear all the dresses and all the skirts and like whatever. I don't know. I mean, not to say that necessarily that's feminine, but like that's how our culture codes feminine.
Yeah.
Whatever. Scotland, they wear skirts, whatever.
Yeah.
My notion of like
yours. Yeah.
my notion. Okay. What so I was like, oh, that's interesting. Just like something that I thought about. I was like, wow, okay. So at some point, and I remember it had a lot to do around sexuality, because in my home, sexuality was something that once I moved in to live with my grandparents who were Holocaust survivors, like sexuality my grandmother, that would be like, that would be like a swear word, or like something.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, like there was like no sexuality in home, period, like at all. Like I remember when I got my menstrual cycle, I was like, oh my God, like let's not talk about this ever at all, never. Like I
Wow.
don't want to, like
Wow.
we're just gonna ignore that. So like it was all of like anything that had to do with like sexuality, women, women stuff. Like, and it was because I never saw my grandparents being intimate, like out, like I never, like first of all, obviously, like I never saw them intimate, but I never saw them being like, I mean, they loved each other, that I felt, but I didn't, there wasn't any like, there was a lot of very interesting wounds around sexuality growing up, and femininity never really had a place. So I think my intuition tells me, when I piece things together, that that's where I can really start to look at kind of where I could decondition a little bit around that. Because I think for me, when I hear the word decondition, I'm like, okay, who do I need to hire? Decondition me, come on. Who's got Instagram deconditioning hashtag? Who's the expert in this space? I need a deconditioning expert. I need basically like the roadmap to deconditioning. Okay, I want to decondition. I don't know how. and sorely I learned that deconditioning is something that is unique to each of us, because through following strategy and authority and through gaining the awareness is when you have the awareness around where the deconditioning happens. Because all of a sudden you become aware, like, oh, that pattern I was in, yeah, that was a part of whatever, was going on in my life. Like, oh, okay, now I can recognize, the deconditioning there. So it was so interesting. I can see how some people are, because I was one of them who was just like, yeah, okay, I get it. Like I read all the human design stuff, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yes, follow strategy and authority, check marks. Okay, conditioning, shortcut, 7 years, too long. Let's do it.
I can do it.
What did you condition over the weekend, please?
Yeah, exactly. That's really interesting. So have you, like, I wonder then, even with this like yin and yang thing, like if a woman, has a lot of yang, and that's, would, like, might she judge herself, or what might that look like? Because it's reflecting in society what feminine and masculine is. But yin and yang isn't about men and women, as you've said before, but we do have some, like, we kind of associate, we do have those. So
exactly. It reminds me of in a group when I posted about like the yin and yang chart, because I didn't understand it when I first saw it.
Right.
Now I understand it. And yes, feminine, masculine is just like one element of that archetype of yin and yang.
Right.
And it was interesting because when I posted about my experience with the yin and yang, somebody popped in and they were like, oh my God, like I'm 70% yang in my chart, which would be more like masculine. And this makes so much sense. Like I hired a feminine coach because like I kept hearing in, everywhere around me, like I have to be more in feminine flow, and, like F that. That, like, no wonder it wasn't working out for me. I need to like I need to, yeah, okay. Like I need to have, obviously, like in her chart, there were some areas where she had yin energy, the more feminine energy. And that's important to know. That's why I think knowing the yin and yang chart is really cool, because you can look at like, okay, where does the yin want to come out
Yeah,
and
specific.
express?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, but then also honoring that her overall archetype of yang energy is like who she is. Like she doesn't need to balance it to some 50-50. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I like that you said that, because it's not about like trying to change it. It's just about, again, knowing and just accepting to a certain extent that, you know,
accepting,
yeah.
yes, 100%.
Yeah, I think I have more yang too. Um,
I feel like your throat center has a lot of yin energy, though.
yeah, very possible. Very possible.
No, I just feel it.
Well, it's interesting. I wonder if that, because the 8-1 channel that I have is the most yin and the most yang hexagrams of the design. I don't know really what that means, but I think the 8 is the most yang and the 1 is the most yin. Just in terms of like,
Yeah.
yeah, the hexagrams.
You can go into your trusty I Ching book
Yes.
and you can look up the line,
Okay.
right? Because the line is what determines if that gate is yin or yang.
Right. Right.
And you can read what the theme is for that line, and it will also tell you it's yin or yang opposites for
Right.
its other gate that it's associated with. So knowing those two, you can kind of figure out how it wants to express and what the opposite may be, so that like, oh, when I'm in more of this opposite theme, then maybe I need to, that's where the balancing happens.
Yes.
Not with the baseline of like your chart, because your chart will tell you like you're 70% yang, you're 30% yin. Like that's fine, that's your ratio. You don't need to like you can accept, right? You can accept that you're not meant to balance that to some 50-50 level. But then when you go in at the granule level, you can start to see.
Yeah. I like that you said that too, because everything in human design is like really about the universe being a biverse. And so like there's everything, it's the two things coming together, and we have this sort of magnet inside of us that's just constantly pulling the two opposite things together. So even in the lines there's like these opposites, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
the polarities for sure. Very, very cool.
And then you can start to play doctor to yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like really kind of like look if it feels right. I mean, it's fun. I like to do it. And I know if anyone's a first line investigator, you'd probably love to do that too.
For sure. Absolutely. Wow. That's a lot. Well, is there anything else? Why don't you tell us a little bit more about where we can find you on the internet, or anything else you want to share with us all?
You can always find me on Instagram, Melissa Leithwood. And I also have my own website. And I'm developing the Human Design Parenting Collective website/community. And that is, you can pull up like charts for your kids there if you want. But that's under wraps right now. I'm just about to unwrap it, but it's not fully ready yet. And yeah, those are kind of the places I like to hang out. I've tried the other places. It's so interesting, but and actually that's what's so great about the strategy and the authority is that, I've tried TikTok and I've tried Twitter. Actually, I was like one of the first like 500 people on Twitter when it launched. And my Twitter, I don't particularly feel inclined to use it, but anyways, Instagram is like my place that I love to hang out and where I meet so many cool people, like really like soul fam.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love Instagram. It is interesting to use strategy and authority with all the socials and technology.
So liberating.
Yeah, I know. And I was saying the other day, I've even started to like really, certain people who follow me, I kind of make sure they're people and
Yes.
will block people or, clean up my followers and things like that every so often.
Yeah, me too.
As projectors, I'm just like, I don't really need a huge following unless everyone's engaged.
Exactly.
I don't need that.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, all the experts,
Yes.
all the coaching experts. I think that that's an interesting scene in itself. Coaching is going to be changing I see that. I have inner vision and
Yeah.
I have the second gate in my Chiron,
Right.
wounded warrior, which is the gate of the the gate of vision. And then also us 6 lines are known as the visionaries, and then projectors naturally have this ability to kind of like see things forward. So
Yeah.
things are so interesting for us because I feel a big shift coming in that space, where there's this fall of this, and it makes sense with what's happening with 2027,
Mm-hmm.
big shift, moving towards individuals and really like feeling here for our like inner knowing for individual selves and feeling. And so I see some big shifts happening when I close my eyes and I get quiet and I'm like, oh, I like this whole idea of experts and gurus and things like this. Like
Yeah.
there's going to be a big shift to, and I feel it because I feel it myself. Like I really love to follow people who are just cool people, like that. Like just before talking to you, I was in the hashtag age strong. Like I just wanted to like, find cool women who were like aging strong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's so interesting to.
Yeah. It's a different time. It is changing so
It is.
much. And the guru thing, and again, I guess that comes back to the people still kind of wanting it to a certain extent, but you do have to, even in myself, I'm like, wow, I'm not taking responsibility fully. But I didn't know how because I didn't know my strategy and authority. And I was just kind of, sometimes I was following my authority, but not knowingly. It would just be hit and miss throughout my life. And I was like, wow, it worked. How come it worked sometimes? Sometimes I'm listening to my mind, but now there's something, you know, consistent and more concrete in a way, even though it's difficult. It's still concrete. It's like a mechanism, not just something like I'm loose to my feelings, sometimes my emotions, sometimes my mind, sometimes my intuition. So yeah, I think, people have to become more responsible and they need to be guided, not told what to do.
And I know that you want to wrap up, but I have a question for you.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. No problem. We're free.
Yeah, no, so you're something I love about what you're doing, and I've really seen you blossom like in your own expression, is like you're really becoming observed. And I love how you're talking about human design with like how you're using it in the home, and like I can't like assume like you're like one of the first like Instagram story bubbles that comes up, because like when your stories, like when you launch a new story, I'm like, oh, I gotta see like what she's talking about today. It's so good.
Thank you. I am observed, and really I do get the most out of being observed, but it's not a comfortable thing. And so I think that's what, maybe over time, and it can be at times, but I guess that was one of the things I had to realize, that like it's not necessarily going to be comfortable. but it's right. And it's correct. And when I go through it, it feels correct. So anyway, thank you. Thank you
Yes.
for saying that. I love seeing you on my stories and all.
I know. I
Yeah.
love it. Because I learned so much from you. I think that's what's so beautiful is that we get to learn from each other. And I feel like before I never used to be that way. Like I always used to like to really elevate, or not even elevate, it's like prioritize experts and doctors, and well, not doctors, but like PhDs, like research and stuff like that, because I love to follow research, and I think that's great, and I still enjoy reading research, but I feel like I'm at a place in my life where, I guess because I'm on the roof as a sixth line, where I'm just really enjoying learning about the other's experience. And it's something that I would like, and I never thought I would pay for things like that before, but I have. Like I paid like $333 to watch someone's, like, to be on someone's Instagram friends list, because I wanted to see like more intimate stories from them.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that's sort of the new form of coaching and guidance, is like people who are using their own experiences. Obviously you can have some guidance for things that you haven't gone through at times, but people are looking for life experience, I guess.
Yeah.
And I've kind of seen that, back when I was a social worker, that happened a lot where, some of my coworkers didn't really have experience except for that they were addicts at one point themselves. And then they got experience through working with, people after they had, so sometimes going through things can give you that. But I do think you're right. I think you're very future. You're collective, right? You're like collective circuitry, or what?
Yes. I'm actually like, I'm crazy amount of collective circuitry. Like I'm a lot, but my sun sign is individual, and my son is individual, so my sun personality is individual, but the rest of my incarnation cross are collective. So the three others are collective.
Right. Yeah, because you're like future, and you're like, I can see how to make this better, and like
yeah, exactly. That's why, like, when I was giving advice to people uninvited, I was like, but I could see things so clearly. Like if you just followed my advice, like it would work out so well. Like it would.
Right? It would.
My advice is solid. Like it would be like, and then like they'd be like, yeah, whatever, and I'd be like,
I know. Yeah, I feel you. I feel you on that one.
And then of course, then there's the projector thing, this happens in my family all the time. Like I was telling you about that 3 years ago. I told you so.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just saying.
Oof.
And they're like, what are you talking about? You never told me that. I'm like, yeah, I did. And they're like, nah. Like,
God. I know I did. I did it to the kids the other day. I have to say, I don't know what Asher was doing or saying. And he's such a third line anyway, so I mostly don't say much. But I was just having a moment, and I was like, look, I'm going to say I told you so in the future, and I'm not going to regret it. I'm just going to say it. So I'm letting you know right now, because I know where this is going, and I'm going to say I told you so. As if that makes it better. I was like, I can't help it, because I know this is going to go downhill. But anyway. Sometimes you just can't help yourself.
Yes. Oh my God. Wow. This has been lovely. I really feel like we have so many, like we went super everywhere, and I feel like we could go super deep on things at some point.
We have to have many, because there's so many different things. So much to say.
Like 1 year later, progress report.
Let's track it. Anyway, yes, thank you so much again, everyone. If you feel called, go check Melissa out on Instagram, and we'll see you next time.
Yes.
Bye.
Thanks, Amanda.